watching another episode of Light and Darkness here on ABN, where we're looking at parables on sacrifice and servanthood, and we're on the fourth parable of Jesus today, focusing on Luke chapter 18, verse 10 to 14, where he talks about and compares the Pharisee with the tax collector. So Luke chapter 18, verse 10 to 14 reads like this. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And the tax collector, standing afar off, would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Then Jesus said, I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. And of course, our theme here in these series is sacrifice and servanthood. And one of the first questions maybe that you have is, well, the Pharisee sacrifices. The Pharisee sacrificed his life. The Pharisee gave of his tithes and serving the community and being in the temple, and every part of his life illustrates, all of his behaviors illustrate that he was in fact sacrificing. So shouldn't he be considered a servant of God? Well, there's a difference between sacrifice out of the heart and sacrifice out of everything but the heart, let's just say. So what he's saying here, that there was a Pharisee and a tax collector. And a tax collector in those days probably did not have a good reputation. A tax collector probably did some things that were deceitful in order to maybe pocket some of the money of the people instead of giving it, or what they had probably not the best reputation in that day. And so this Pharisee that was probably around said, thank you, Lord, that I'm not like this tax collector. I do this and this. And he goes through his laundry list of what he claims to be doing for God and not for himself. But then Jesus said right away he was able to distinguish, and he made it very clear in front of whoever was around him. He said, I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. So he's talking about the tax collector in comparison with the Pharisee. And of course, why? He said, because at the end, for everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. So he's saying, listen, it doesn't matter how much you tithe. It doesn't matter how much you fast. It doesn't matter how much you do or say that you do in the name of God, unless you are broken, unless your heart has been pierced by God, unless you are humbled and surrendered before the presence of God. All of your deeds not only mean nothing, but in fact they are working against you in the presence of God. Why? Because your heart is not in the right place. Your heart is to bring glory to yourself. Your heart has been hardened by your pride. Your heart is not in the same place as this tax collector. You see, this tax collector may have a history of uncleanness, may have a history of a bad reputation, but his heart has changed in the presence of God, and therefore he has been forgiven. Therefore, he's been raised up. Therefore, he has been uplifted. Therefore, I see him as pure in my eyes. But the Pharisee, I could care less, he's saying, about all the deeds. Why? Because I don't need your deeds. Why? Because if God wanted something or wanted something done, then I think that God, he himself, the creator of the universe, could probably have gotten it done. But the Pharisee, once he's reached to the point of being a Pharisee, has gotten into this cycle of, it's almost like a downward spiral of uplifting himself in the presence of others and completely ignored the presence of God and the holiness of God and the quietness of God, and instead rebelled against God under the umbrella of God, which he's really creating that problem for himself in the long run. But so what he's saying here is that the sacrifice, it's not necessarily a physical sacrifice. It's not how much you sacrifice if it's outside of the source of the heart, which is where the love for God originates from. And then I recall another parable where he talks about in the temple there were people coming in and out and people putting money into the as an offering. And then an older woman, slowly, very slowly, she just looked like a very poor woman. She's much older, and she just walked, and she had 2 pennies with her, and she dropped those 2 coins into the offering and went about her way. Whereas, it was very busy, and people were, probably dropping in a lot more than that. But Jesus noted what the woman had done because he saw the heart of the woman, and he saw that that's all she had. And he saw that she didn't do it out of praise and glory for other people, but she did it because she wanted to honor God with whatever that she had. So he said, I tell you, what she put in or what she offered or what she sacrificed is more than what all of these people, because all of these people, they do it for other people to see and for the praise of men and to be patted on the back. And they become almost like Pharisees. But this woman who has nothing, because it's her heart, and Jesus looks at the heart and only the heart, so he's saying that she is greater than all of these people. And so, again, it's an opportunity for us, whether we are the Pharisee or whether we are the tax collector, or whether we have been both or are neither. It's an opportunity for us to see ourselves and examine ourselves and to say, where do I stand in my faith? Where do I stand in my love for God? Where do I stand in my sacrifice and surrender to God? Where do I stand in my servant heart for God? Am I for him 100% or am I against him 100%? And really the parable of the tax collector in his in God piercing the heart of the tax collector is a wonderful testimony and a great message of hope for those of us hearing this testimony, that no matter whatever history, no matter however people see you, no matter what you've done, if the heart is ready for change, so God will change it. And once God changes the heart, it's irreversible. And that irreversible heart, that's what changes those around. And that's what creates that testimony for, of course, the glory of God, the praise of God, and the honor for God and God alone. But it's a great opportunity for us to see for ourselves and those around us, where do we stand with God, and how can we develop a stronger relationship with him and to please him more in obedience and in surrender and in love, and to see his glory shining on our face and his miracles through our life to bless other people. Thanks for joining me here on Light and Darkness.